Tonight I have a very special guest, Carlitos Aguilar. We
Thank you.
sit down in the past in Spanish, in English, hablamos en español, en inglés. We mix it up. We're trying to say, okay, how are we going to do it? We're going to do it in Spanish. We're going to sit down and we'll hablar en español. ¿Qué hacemos? ¿Por dónde entramos? We do it both ways. It doesn't matter. We're open-minded, right, Carlitos?
Yes, así es.
Así es. Así que vamos a entrarle en inglés primero y después en español. I wanted to basically what you're here to cover what event, because there's some stuff going on in the Lincoln Center.
Yeah, the New York
Right
Film
now.
Festival at the Lincoln Center. Been my second time covering the festival, and it's a great festival. It brings films from all over the world, and it is usually they're films that have premiered at the festivals for the most part. So it's the best of the best, and the filmmakers come, and it's Q&A. So it's a very renowned and very great festival. So
And
it's fun.
it's kind of tight, but it's a lot of work too. You have to see a lot of films.
Yeah, there's a lot of films, and then if you want to do some interviews, so there's always something going on, especially in New York. So
Yes, I know. How many movies? You have to have another week to go, right? You have another week left.
I've seen probably like 10 so far. So it's usually like 2 or 3 a day from the festival. So there's still a whole other week, and there's films this weekend, so there's lots of things going on.
Talk to me about your best film so far right now, because I've been reading. I got an email from Carlitos trying to be updated with what's going on, because obviously you want to get ready when you're doing an interview. You don't want to sit down and look cute and look hot. You want to do your job, and you want to deliver. So therefore, you have to do your homework. But it's been a little bit kind of hectic and crazy, because we got now the credential passes to go to the UN. So we went to the UN, me along with Gloria Messer, Jeffrey Del Romero, my dear friend and journalist. We're collaborating and developing this new show called Nuestro Mundo. And we got press passes to go in to the UN, and it was a beautiful, crazy experience to see the Pope. We were lucky enough to be there that day, even though it was a little too much craziness taking place, because everybody wanted to to get the right shot. It was a little tight and crazy, but it was a beautiful, an overwhelming experience. And I was there on Monday too. I wanted to get some B-roll, and I decided to go by myself. I brought the camera. I said, I'm not going to bring any tripods. I'm just going to go in and shoot. And Obama was there, and the Russian president was there, and it was a whole different experience for me.
I'm sure.
And it's uplifting, because this is something that has a lot of meaning. But anyway, it's been kind of like a crazy last, I guess, couple weeks. And I got the email from Carlitos, and I said, Carlitos, I need to get ready. I need to send me the links of the stuff that you've been doing lately. And it's pretty impressive. We were talking on the phone about the fact that you keep all this journalistic level in both languages, English
And Spanish. Yeah.
and Spanish, and that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. It's interesting to write in both languages. Sometimes it's like half a day I write in English and then half in Spanish. So it's going back and forth and still give it the quality and know the nuances of each language, because you can't really write the same way in each language. So it's just
Right.
and it's all about entertainment. So it's very specific in tone. So it's a challenge, but it's been a learning experience. I've started writing in Spanish more constantly in the past few months, writing for Variety Latino, which is in Spanish.
Yes.
And I still do, all my other outlets which are in English. So it's difficult, but it's very it keeps you, on your feet on both languages.
Right.
So it doesn't let you kind of become obsolete or forget things about.
Right,
each one.
right. And you're specific.
I try to be.
You're trying to be specific, and that's what I appreciated. When I was reading, I was getting reading the interview with this guy from South Bath.
Jake Gyllenhaal, yeah.
Yes, he was. I like him very much. I think he's a very intense actor. But I was reading about his work, in the way that he trained himself, in the way that he had to get ready, basically to lose the fear, to be relaxed in the ring. Is a whole,
Definitely an intense process, yeah. And the way he talks about it, you could really tell that he's an actor that really is there for the craft. It's really the Hollywood thing has passed for him. I feel, it's not really focused on that. It's really about the characters, and how immersive. I think it's the best thing about that movie. He's just really great in it. And
Yeah, I have-
physically and emotionally, it's a great performance.
Yeah, he got ready for that, and it's like the training is hard for a fighter, for any actor who trying to attempt to look like a fighter. You have to look like a fighter, like a real fighter.
Yeah, he had to like train with a bunch of different, like he had to really look like he was actually a boxer. There's certain things that you couldn't fake. But I remember he was telling me that the hardest part was actually the emotional stuff. Like the whole fact that this character, it's broken and he loses everything and he has to kind of like come back from the ashes and emerge.
Right, redemption.
Yeah, exactly.
and it's very interesting. Now, Carlitos, when you go in and you sit down and you watch a film, obviously you develop a taste and vos tenés los, ¿cómo es que se decimos en español? Los sentidos bien agudos. O sea, you're sharp as a knife, right? When you go in, when you sit down and say, okay, this is what I need to see, how does it work in terms of like the mental notes? Do you like to take a lot of notes when you're watching a film, or you can easily retain the main ideas, and then when you go home, you can just let it out of your system? How does it work?
I think the main ideas are usually what stays. I feel like if I take notes, which most for the most part I do, they're very specific details that I know that I might not remember after. Like very specific shots or colors or like a certain phrase, like a dialogue line that I know that I might not remember afterwards.
Right,
but I think like the essence of the film, especially if it's a good film,
It's a good film.
If it's a good film, it stays with you even for a long time, So it's usually more about the details that you want to bring into whatever you're writing. You want to make it more specific because there's so many reviews out there, there's so many interviews out there about the same films that you kind of want to give it, your own what stand out to you, which is
Right.
what I found interesting about a film might not be the same that another journalist finds it interesting, So-
Right. What makes you think an interview unique, Carlitos?
An interview?
Yeah, when you're watching it, when you're reading it, what makes an interviewer or an interview unique in your own experience? How do you see it?
I feel like, well, for once you really have to know the material that you're discussing, because I feel like once you know whatever you're talking to about the director or the cast, you know the film, or even if you watch their previous work, so you can have some background. I think once you know more about that person or you're kind of familiar with them, it kind of opens the possibility of being a more authentic and more spontaneous interview, because you know exactly you know who this person is, at least career-wise. So I feel like the best ones are the ones where you get like little snippets of like real personality, or like real something true that they haven't, that it's not usually the same thing that actors repeat about the film, or like what happens in every interview. When you get something special, that's when it's great.
It's true, because it would be nice to see a lot of the people when you're doing it and when you're sitting down. It's a challenge, obviously, because every guest is going to dictate
Of course.
right? A different rhythm. I mean, you had to bring your own take to the table. You had to bring your knowledge and your instincts and your research to the table. But I guess it gets challenging. In your case, you're interviewing A-listers. You're interviewing big people. So how does it work in terms of, like, I know it's a job, it's a business. You go in, you need to deliver, you got to do your job. But how does it work? Do you get time to time intimidated a little bit, or maybe a little nervous, or maybe a little stressed out that the stakes might be a little too high, and you might feel like, oh God, I have to pull this off?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
in the worst way.
I think
pressure, like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you have that.
Yeah, of course, you're going in a room with like Salma Hayek, or you're going in a room with
right.
like. So
because that's what I want to hear, because I was checking your links. And I did it before in the past, because this is the second time that we sit together. But how does it work when you have somebody like Salma Hayek, like somebody like this big movie stars?
I feel like, I mean, if you were not nervous or intimidated, I feel like it would lose some of its charm. I think that's kind of like the appeal still, that you like, if it's the first time you're interviewing someone and you're sitting down one-on-one and it's, just you and them, even if it's 10 minutes, I feel like you do have to have some kind of like, nervousness.
Right.
So so you try to deliver. Right. But at the same time, you can, these are people after all, and they're there to talk about the work, So you're doing a job too. So I feel like if the person and the actor, it's, sensitive enough, it will go well, because they know that they want to promote this film. And
of course, you need to make noise.
Yeah, being intimidated will be, it's difficult because you feel you kind of have to leave the fandom behind
Right,
for a
on
second, you
hold.
know. But it is kind of, you know, like if it's a director that you've been following for years and you have it all of a sudden in front of you, it's a balance of, you know, definitely show that you appreciate your work, but at the same time keep it professional.
Of course.
But I kind of like that fact that you still feel
Get the
nervous.
butterflies.
Yeah, because I mean, otherwise, if it becomes routine and it's like, another interview, then it just loses whatever you like, you know,
Yeah.
from the start. What would you want to do it if it's just commonplace, you know?
It's like, it reminds me a little bit of Notting Hill, remember, with Julia Roberts and
Yeah.
Hugh Grant back in the day? When they have all those journalists back on one-on-one. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Now, let me ask you, do you know when you sit down, do you know your first question, every single question, or do you just let the moment take you there?
I have a list of questions.
You do?
However, though, as you say, like sometimes the person you
guest.
interview him, you know, it like dictates whatever you like asking. You know, like sometimes I might ask a question that leads into something that I might not.
Right.
I probably didn't contemplate, and then this person wants to talk about something different, you know, or they answer one of my following questions in a different question, you know. So it's like you kind of gotta be on your feet and improvise, you know, and like not improvise.
But yeah, but
Precisely,
be attentive and have
exactly.
a good eye, like a good ear, too.
And know that if the person's like open about something or telling you something specific, maybe you want to go along the line and like leave some of your pre-written questions behind just to get a better interview. I feel like it's one of those things. Sometimes you really go by the book. You know, if this person just really tells you, you know, if there's short answers and you have your questions.
What do you do when they do that? It drive you crazy, right? When they do that. I remember one of my toughest interviews when I interview, rest in peace, Emil Griffith. He's a 6-time world champion. Back in the day, he was big. Every boxing fan know who he is. And I brought him here along with his son about 5 years ago. And it was a challenge. Obviously, I was a little bit all over the place because I have all this energy and I was having a good time.
Yeah.
I was having such a great time that I completely forgot about the interview. But anyway, I remember that I was with Luis and Emil, rest in peace, a wonderful man and a legend in the boxing world, okay? And I will ask him and he would just remain quiet. It's like he wouldn't give me a lot of answers.
It happens, yeah, it happens
And
often.
it was the most difficult, challenging interview ever. Now, in terms of like all these A-listers and who do you like? What are the people that it gets in your heart and in your mind? That, oh, that was such a great interview. He was such a riot. Or the guy, he was so great. Do you remember people out of the top of your head that you can remember? Oh, that was such a special interview.
But perhaps the most special recently was director Alfonso Gomez Rejon. He had a movie that won Sundance this year, and it was Me and Aaron, the Dying Girl. And he's also known for directing American Horror Story.
American Horror Story.
And he's I wouldn't say prodigy of Martin Scorsese, but he worked for Martin Scorsese for a while. So he's, in my eyes, he's a big filmmaker. You know, even though this is his second film and he's the one that kind of like blew him up, he's been working as an assistant for like Alejandro González Iñárritu and like other people. So he's been in the business for a while and working with big people. But he was the most humble. Like I've interviewed him twice this year, and the second time it was just we talked more about like how he became a filmmaker, more besides the film about him as, you know, and his interests. And he was the nicest guy ever. Like I just felt like it wasn't an interview that it was, you know, like he was regurgitating answers that he said before. Like I felt like it was, you know, it was real.
Substantial.
And I feel like that's, for all the interviews I've seen with him, he always seems to be very genuine, which
and
is
accessible
and humble, and like, you know, and he loves film, which I think that's the most important thing. When you know that someone's loving what they do on the craft, I think that's very great. So he's great. Salma Hayek was amazing too.
Yeah, and I heard like once again that she might be a little bit for some press because you read and I do read a lot and I see what's going on, and some people say that she's a little difficult. I never met Salma Hayek. I have no idea, but it was nice to hear that you had a great experience with her, that everything was nice.
She was lovely, yeah.
She was
and
lovely.
I also feel that it was also because, I mean, it was a film that she was very connected to. It's an animated film that she's been trying to pull off the ground for a while, but a passion project. So I felt like, you know, that also, you know, helped with the fact that she was very into talking about this film. You know, she really wanted like people to know about this film, which I really like. So it's called The Prophet, and it's an animated film.
It's an animated film.
Yeah, and she does the voice, and she's a producer in the film. So she does one of the voices, and she's a producer. So yeah, she was really great. I mean, there's so many people, you know, interviews. There's also interviews that are difficult, like you mentioned. You know, that they're like harder. You know, sometimes the person might take your questions confrontational. They might feel like you're questioning.
Or they take it way too personal.
Yeah, you know, so it's like, you never really know what you're going to get when you interview someone, you know. It's like, you could be the last interview of the day and they're tired, and maybe that influence, you know, the fact that they just been doing 15 interviews and they just, you know, done.
Right.
But
somehow, and please, burn me to the stake if I'm wrong, all of us, we need each other. I mean, this is, when you're making films, when you're making movies, when you're writing plays, it's about supporting each other, right?
Of course, yeah, you want to get the word out there.
You're going to get the word out there. Whenever I go to see a movie, I see a play, like I went to reading this week, the Selective 10, what they called, and they select all these one-acted plays, and I went to see a friend of mine who's a member of the Actors Studio. He's exquisite, a great actor, and in my opinion, an incredible playwright. A lot of people in the studio loves Mark Brokowski, but I went to see his work. He wrote a play, The Dead Monkey, and I went to the reading, and I see all these actors that I didn't know. You always, that's the beauty about New York City, that you just go to all these events and you get to know all these people, Carlos. Filmmakers, actors, producers, playwrights. And we have to make noise.
Yeah, you have to.
This is what we do. And I don't see how, and I don't know, people, they just get a little crazy sometimes. I think ego gets in the way, and when it does, it doesn't make you look too good. I think it's in our mission to collaborate and be helpful to one another.
Yeah.
Right? I was reading about your experience with the Ukrainian.
That was an
Please, can we talk about that? What's the name of the film?
That was a very unique interview. The film's called The Tribe.
The Tribe.
It's a Ukrainian film that it opened in June, I think, in theaters, but it became a big thing in Cannes last year at the Cannes Film Festival. The interview was with the film. It's the entire cast. They're deaf actors, and the interesting thing is that when you see the film, there's no subtitles, so you don't know exactly what they're saying. And the filmmaker, whoever bought the film for any country, they were forced to screen the film in theaters without subtitles, so you don't know. But at the same time, it makes it universal, because if you and a person in Asia or Latin America is watching that film and no one's watching with subtitles, it's really about the character and the story, because there's the language doesn't really matter, Right. It's really, and it's very intense, and it's a story about crime in a deaf Ukrainian school. So I interviewed the main actress a few months ago, and she's deaf, so she only speaks Ukrainian Sign Language. So we needed someone to translate from Ukrainian Sign Language to English Sign Language, and from English Sign Language to spoken Sign Language. So it was four of us spoken English, I'm sorry. Four of us in a table, so each answer took a few minutes. So in like 25 minutes, I only got to ask like 3 or 4 questions,
But that's a unique experience.
It is, because you see the cycle of language, how whatever she said had to go to like, cycle and be translated several times before I could actually know what she meant, even though we were like across from each other. So that was very unique, one of the most strangest interviews I've had. Yeah,
but that's interesting too. I like the fact that, Carlitos, you have a chance to see all this work and all these movies, and I think it's great. It's just that, but it makes you very demanding in your own way. I think you're not easy to satisfy.
Yeah,
Am I right?
The more you watch, you kind of, it takes a little something special to impress you, I guess. But I feel like everyone's like that. Not only if you write about film, I feel like if you're someone that watches a lot of movies,
or go to the theater a lot,
or you watch a lot of plays, or you read a lot of books or TV, you develop your own taste, and you kind of look for very specific things that you like, and that you consider to be good. So.
What about the Emmys? What was your take on the Emmys this year?
I feel like they were strangely fair when it comes to the people that won, So it's just
What about the hosting? I thought it was very funny. The guys from SNL.
Yeah, they were real fun.
He's so good.
So
all of them are so good. But I love Amy Poehler, and Veep. I think is a great show.
Yeah, I mean, she's the queen of the category.
Are you
breakfast.
kidding me? She's the queen of the queen. She's la creme de la creme. But I think it was a good mix.
Yeah, I
with the
mean,
Emmys.
I feel like they're probably the Emmys have taken on a different. I mean, they were always important, but the fact that TV has become
So powerful.
is very powerful, and it's like the medium that I think most people consume the most these days. You know, in digital platforms and whatnot. There's so many content being created just to watch online that the entire seasons of things are like available, so people really consume a lot of it very quickly.
Right.
So people just know about these shows, and the fact that they've been recognized in a sense. You know, I feel like people are more interested in like the categories or whoever's
It's
being
interesting.
recognized.
I loved Frances when she won Best Actor in the lead drama series for.
Yeah, she didn't expect it.
It was fun, but it was fun. Even the delivery of the speech, she was this is what you do when you have great writing.
It was about the work.
It's about the work, and that's pretty much it. But it was in and out, and I see Malik coming my way. Are you cutting my throat? No, of course not. Malik, you're just checking the waters. But that was unexpected. I mean, you want to see people winning, you want to see people doing work, but bottom line, you want to see artists coming together.
They're making good work. So.
In making good work, and that shows you that independent films are powerful. That
Of course.
filmmakers and writers and actors and everybody's creating together, and somehow we have to give more attention to them. You know what I'm saying? Because the big movie stars, the A-listers, like they have plenty of coverage.
Of course. It's the little guys that need more attention.
We need
always.
to pay more attention to the ones who are at West 4th. You know, you get off on West 4th, you go to, forget about Times Square, forget about all the big venues. Just go to the smaller venues and see the work that is taking place, Carlito. You need to explore. Like, I think that we as communicators, we have to explore much more those venues because they need more attention. They need more help.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like also
Right?
people need to take a chance to, you know, like maybe watch a movie that you haven't heard about, you know, like, or there's like a movie from another country or a movie that has no A-list actors, you know.
Right.
Give yourself the chance to be surprised by something that you will not normally watch, you know, like, you know, because I feel like people, when they go to theater, they know specific what they're going to watch and they know why, because there's an actor or because it's an action film. But if more people kind of like, you know, give a chance to other films, maybe not necessarily in theaters, which is ideal, but if they start developing a different, you know, not a taste, but if they start developing a broader spectrum of what film could be, not only like mainstream, if they, you know, maybe I watch a French film tonight, I might like it, I might not, you know, it's like,
Right.
I feel like it's, with all art, you know, with TV or books, or, you know, exploring things that you might not.
Human nature, yes. Yes, it should be. I mean, hablemos en español. We're almost close to wrap it up, so we're going to speak in a little bit of Spanish because that's our native language. And bottom line, it feels so goddamn good. El español es un idioma, pero I wanted to, before we go to introduction in Spanish a little bit, I want to thank all my staff and Gloria Messer for collaborating, Jeffrey Romero, Alex Del Romero, Charles Casano, Ignacio Guevara, all the people, Marisela Zamora and Laura Estorga, porque habernos presentado.
Claro, sí.
So it's always a daily collaboration, it's a weekly collaboration, and like I said it again, Freddy, muchísimas gracias. No sé si Freddy está, pero él nos ayudó a hacer el trabajo de setting up the lighting and the cameras today. You can't do it alone. There's no way that you can do it alone.
No.
You have to work together. And I'm not running for Congress, but you have to work together. La experiencia, we're going to make a little translation. We're going to make a little switch into Spanish. And now, I don't know, I'm switching my body posture. I'm like going to right, left, I'm swinging like a fighter now. That's not a good sign. La impresión tuya hasta ahora del festival, de lo que estás viendo, ¿qué es lo que más te ha gustado así por encima? Sin dar detalles y dar nombres, ¿qué es lo que más te ha impresionado lo que has visto?
¿Sin dar nombres de películas, dices?
Sí. Lo que más, sin darme el nombre de películas, algo que te haya, no el nombre de la película, pero la experiencia de, algo que te haya impresionado, que te haya dejado pensando al respecto, que te haya llevado
hay muchas historias poco convencionales, creo que eso es lo mejor, que hay muchas películas con temáticas y con ideas que quizás no son lo que esperas cuando te sientas de ver una película y que en verdad son películas que por lo general son de otros países, algunas son americanas, claro, pero te muestran ideas que quizás no habías contemplado tú a primera vista, que quizás si no te lo hubiera puesto la película ahí y no cuestionarte, hacerte pensar acerca de ciertos asuntos de tu vida cotidiana que quizás no son tan, tan comunes y que le da un giro a lo que conocemos o al mundo que pensamos o a los países que creemos que conocemos y nos muestran una ventana a verlos más profundamente o a conocer a mismas historias de Estados Unidos. Creo que es lo más importante de este festival y de muchos, pero de las películas que he visto aquí son historias poco convencionales que te hacen pensar.
Ajá, ajá. Hay algo que te llama atención en la Argentina, por ejemplo, estaba escuchando una entrevista con ese señor Gael García, es que le llamamos, con el argentino, el director argentino que yo nunca he visto. ¿Cómo es él? Porque yo he oído mucho de él, pero no he tenido la oportunidad de chequear su trabajo. ¿Cómo es él?
El director